I'm Bill DeYoung. This is Ray Roa. Hey, Ray. Ray,
Hey, how are
Ray
you?
is the editor-in-chief of Creative Loafing Tampa, and a friend of mine, and I'm grateful to him for coming on here tonight. And I know we've talked before about how we kind of had similar career trajectories in a lot of ways. Just being obsessed with music, and then, hey, you mean I can make money doing this? You know. But anyway, can you hear me okay? Ray, can you hear me
Yeah, I
okay?
can hear you okay.
Okay.
I lost a couple of sentences there, but
Oh, I was just saying what a great guy you were, man. You know,
yeah, I
reminding me of
heard you
what
say we had
folks.
like similar career paths. I think you've interviewed some more heavy hitters than I have, but
Well, it's just because I'm older than you, man. Just give yourself some time. Let me run through my quick little bio that I got. Ray was born in Hawaii, spent a few years in LA, and
I was.
moved to Tampa. You were 11, is that right? 11 years old.
Correct. Yeah, packed up in a Penske truck with my family and listened to Don Moen gospel music as we drove across the U.S. and followed my dad, who was a computer programmer, who had a job with GTE or Verizon. I don't know what it was at the time, but moved him across the country.
You, I think you said somewhere that your earliest musical thing was like you were obsessed with the Backstreet Boys and the Lion King soundtracks. This is
Yeah,
early '90s, I'm guessing, right?
yeah, I distinctly remember listening to the Lion King soundtrack, specifically "Can You Feel the Love Tonight" on a
Mm,
green cassette. I remember that, thinking about somebody that I thought I was attracted to at whatever age I was, and a lot of cassette tape. Young MC was one. My dad and I used to write down the lyrics to rap songs and stuff like that.
when did you start? I don't know, going to shows and getting obsessed with music and bands? You know, that was a teenage thing, I
Uh,
guess.
I think it pretty much really kicked off. I was always into it. Uh, I'd spent a lot of time journaling, always listening to music, but really going to shows probably towards the tail end of high school. I had some friends who were in bands and the
Yeah,
Brass Mug, or they play a battle of bands at like State Theater or Masquerade or something. So that was really my first experience of going into clubs for shows.
yeah.
Um, Went to some club dance nights as a kid, or Club Joy, which is now Whiskey North. But that's pretty much it. Like late high school, I think, with some friends' bands. Yeah,
Do you play an instrument yourself?
I could play the guitar.
Yeah.
I actually was in band started in sixth grade. Was in band all through high school, so I can pretty much play any valve brass instrument except the French horn. Um, and then played some
Oh, that's
guitar, and
cool. Yeah.
I know some chords on the piano, but nothing. I'm not good.
Yeah. I'm a lot older than you, and I still know about five chords on the piano, and that's
Five
you
chords
know,
is probably too many, or too many.
man, I can do D minor, you know. They're all just triplets anyway, you know, little triad things. Well, what I mean is there's a turning point, right? That I think I'm really interested
Yeah.
in what makes people become music journalists, you know, and there's like a tipping point in their lives somewhere. I always thought maybe it was because we're all just really opinionated, and
Hmm.
at some point we figured that we can make our opinion a little louder than others by writing it down. I mean, put those things
Yeah.
together for me, if you will. An obsession with music and then becoming a music journalist. How did that happen for you?
Yeah. So for me, I failed out of college the first time. So I did 3 semesters at USF and flamed out.
Hmm.
Ended up at HCC, which ended up being great. Ended up working on the radio and the newspaper there. Uh, and then at some point, I ran out of money to go to shows. So I pitched Leilani to start doing some Music Week things, I think. And I was also working on this website at the time called Reacts. It used to be a magazine. By the time I got there, it was a website. So Reacts
Yeah.
Music Magazine. That turned into Suburban Apologist. So I was pretty much just writing about it all the time. So that combined with newspaper at school, just writing. So, and all of a sudden I'm starting to get interviews and then going to shows. I was doing 2 reviews a week for Reacts, and I don't know if I ever really bought into the idea that I was a critic.
Yeah.
I think I'm still kind of struggle with that, um, but I'm getting better at it. I'm starting to realize the importance of being critical in a very constructive way. Um, I tend to really sympathize with artists and understand that art is something for the person making it, and as us consumers, it's up to us to try to understand it. And yeah, there's bad shows, right? I've been
Yeah.
to some bad shows and I've written about them, that way. But I've always been more interested in the relationship between the artist and the audience.
Yeah.
So
I've never been comfortable in the role of critic, I mean, it was always sort of, well, why should anybody care about my opinion? But if you can write something that makes a connection, I totally agree with what you say, between the artist and the listener or the reader, and say, look, let me help you get to know each other a little better. That was always very important to me. Did you say, wait a minute, I want to back up a minute. Did you say that you didn't have any more money to go to shows, so you started submitting stuff to Leilani so you get the shows free? Is
yeah,
that
I think definitely that was the motivation at first was, hey, can I get into shows for free?
yeah.
So I mean that was definitely part of it. And I don't know, I still pay covers at some shows, but I've been
Yeah.
pretty lucky. But obviously, right now, nobody's going to any concerts.
Well, I read Eric Snyder's piece today, and I'll tell you, that I've known Eric for a long time, and that magazine, Music Magazine, that he mentioned.
Hmm.
I think I told you this story once, that it was our mutual friend, Mr. Templeton, Bill Templeton, who started that. This was 1980, and he started it literally. This is the time that Elvis Costello and the Clash, and there was a whole kind of revolution in what we were listening to, and we didn't like what 98 Rock was playing at the time. And Bill started that. He brought me into his orbit, and Eric and Kenny Hall. He started it because he knew the labels would send him free records to review, and
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's part of it.
yeah, and I think I was the only one who actually had a byline somewhere. Eric might have at that point too, but I don't think Bill had. But that was the whole, and he built that whole thing out of that. And suddenly, we all we did was call ourselves journalists, and suddenly they were giving us free stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't call it faking it till you make it. I think you bring enthusiasm to a platform that you've been given, and then you figure it out
Yeah.
along the way. There's nothing wrong with that.
You worked for Gasparilla for a while. Do you still do stuff with them, or?
Yeah, I worked for Gasparilla Music Festival for I think 3 years. I don't do anything with them. When I got hired full time at Creative Loafing 3 or 4 years ago, I left that just because it would be a
Hmm.
conflict
Oh,
of
sure. Yeah.
interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I stopped doing that. But I don't doubt that without Gasparilla Music Festival, I would be where I am just because it led me to a job at an advertising agency that allowed me to start writing full time, whether it was ad copy or social copy. But it got me out of the restaurants and the bars that I was working at.
Yeah.
And I remember the day I sent a letter to my editors and I said, hey, uh, I'm not going to work in a bar anymore and I get to write full time. And it's all because you guys supported me. So uh, I remember that without Gasparilla Music Festival, I would not be doing this.
That's very, very cool. What do
Yeah.
your own musical taste listen to, lean towards? I mean, what do you like?
I love melody. So I'm a big fan of that. There's nothing I don't like. I really like pop music. I mean,
Mhm.
I will be the first to admit that I listen to Taylor Swift. I
I
love
think
The
I read something of
Weeknd. I
yours. Yeah.
love pop. Yeah.
Uh,
I love that. I remember liking NSYNC a lot. I love folk music. Um, I really like folk music. I like everything. I mean, there's nothing I don't listen to. Um, yeah, I don't even have like moods, right? Like I can just put anything and I do enjoy it. I do really love soul music.
yeah.
D'Angelo is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say maybe folk, soul, anything with a super strong melody. I really like. So
Yeah.
for
I
a
think
while, it was anything I could learn to play on guitar.
what you're saying, I think, is that you have a respect for the artist and basically anybody, genre notwithstanding. I mean, there's certain genres of music that I don't really listen to, but I kind of respect the artist side of it. It's like I like what you said before. Somebody's putting themselves out there. I mean, sure, there's some stuff that's just there to get airplay.
Oh yeah, there's bad music. I mean, this. Like, I have a radio show on Saturdays where my wife and I play nothing but new music. So I listen to new music all the time, and I will say that 15% of the songs I listen to make it onto the show. It's hard to program 2 hours of new music every week.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shitty music out,
Yeah, right,
and
right. There always
people
has
are
been.
paying publicists really good money to push it out. So, and that's not a knock on the artist, just like not my taste. So I'm not saying I like everything, but there's nothing I won't listen to, and there's nothing that I'm incapable of enjoying as far as genres or sounds. So
when you landed, I know you'd written for the Times, and I guess you said you had some stuff in the old Tribune, maybe. Okay.
Can you repeat that? You said landed at.
It's one of these. Okay. I know you when you landed at Creative Loafing. I know you had written for a while for the Times, done some correspondence stuff, and I guess for the old Tribune as well, maybe.
I don't know if I ever had a byline in the Tribune. I don't remember that, but I did write for the Times for several years. Jake Cridlin called me one day. I think it was like the editor at TBT at the time. I forget if it was like a features editor or something. I forget, but he had seen my work in Suburban Apologist and Creative Loafing, and then he asked me to do a weekly live music roundup, and I did that for several years. God, I can't remember. Maybe it was 4 or 5. Who knows? It was awesome.
Well, I wondered, Ray, was when you finally sort of as I say, landed with Creative Loafing. I mean, did you sort of feel like this feels like the right fit for me? This is because I'm going to talk in a minute about the difference between different kinds of community media, obviously, but when you got with CL, was that like, I feel this is good. I can actually have, because there's something a little rigid about writing, roundups for the daily paper.
Yeah.
Creative Loafing felt like home to you, is what I'm saying. Did it?
I think I could have done either of them. I truly enjoyed the challenge of making sure that I served a wide swath of readers and listening tastes at the Times. I think they gave me a lot of freedom to.
You have frozen here. There you are. Now you're breaking up on my end. I didn't hear what you said.
I enjoy the challenge of writing for different musical tastes and readers.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't. The challenge of writing for different. Want to say that again? Writing for different musical tastes. No, not working.
Yeah. Thanks for saying it again. This is a big jumble here, but it's live. It's live streaming, folks.
So, all right. I think I have a connection now. So I enjoyed. Is that better? I enjoyed.
I don't think talking slower is going to do it. I enjoy. You like writing for different.
I'm going to close the window.
I always like learning a little bit more.
I can't drop it.
Okay. This is a disaster here. Let's just do a little tap dancing here for a while. I'm not sure what. Okay, listen, we all know why alt weeklies exist. I worked for one for 5 years in Savannah, and it was some of the happiest days of my journalistic life. We know why they're so important to a vibrant community such as ours. The local paper Record can only do so much. I wrote this down. And for lots of reasons, they only want to do so much. And there has to be an outlet for other voices and perspectives. I mean, would you say that's basically what an alt weekly exists for?
Yeah, I agree. The alt weekly is an interesting thing because obviously the alt weeklies haven't been around, as long as these large papers of record that are so institutionalized. But a lot of alt weeklies are, and alt weeklies have had to evolve as well, but also kind of maintain like a really strict identity. And kind of as people become more polarized and everything becomes more divisive. I mean, when Alt Weekly started and they took these kind of left leaning or kind of harder stances on things. I don't think anybody imagined it media would be the way it is now. All weekly's almost tame, like it
Yeah.
in some ways. We're not some of like these extreme things, although some of our readers would disagree.
Well, sure, and
But
that's their right to. Yeah. No, I
yeah, but
remember that, the sort of radical, radical left, usually
yeah,
in college towns, right?
yeah, but I would say that that is the role of the alt weekly. I believe a city with just a daily, nobody to check the times. I love the times, you know, but I do feel like the job of an alt weekly is to report on the daily. Uh, my digital editor, Colin, and I like to say we love the Tampa Bay Times and we want it to be better. So that's why sometimes we make fun of them or kind of rail against the editorial take or something,
Well, yeah, it's
So
the smaller voice sometimes has to be louder. Culturally,
right.
hey, look, this is the other thing I wrote down, so let me say it. Culturally,
Mhm.
there's a whole other world out there, as we all know. Some of it's a generational difference, to be sure, but it's no less valid, and it deserves to have its
Mhm.
own media. Is it safe to say, Ray, or is it kind of an unfounded generalization that creative loafing is geared toward a younger audience?
I don't think it's safe to say that. I know that I have two separate audiences now. I have a print audience, and we've been lucky to print the paper, every week. Still doing it through here, and we have an online audience. The website, as you know, moves very fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, do we get a younger audience? Yeah, but I'm not getting 13, 14, 15-year-olds reading our paper. Now, I do imagine, I remember being that age and reading Creative Loafing. I grew up reading
Yeah.
Creative Loafing, and I remember, I always think of the kid who is like uncomfortable in their skin, maybe reads something in the back pages of an alt weekly and realizes that they're not alone, you know?
Oh,
So,
yeah.
in that sense, we do have that younger audience, but I would say we have a wide swath. It is hard to kind of pin them down. I obviously would love to have a younger audience. I would love to capture all people. There are choice words in our newspaper, and we
Yeah.
cover some like not family friendly topics, but um, going back to your original point, the Alt Weekly talks about a lot of things that you're not going to read in the paper, but that are very necessary. So yeah, I
Absolutely.
don't
But there's
know that I
also,
don't know that we're younger.
but
Like to
like
be.
the
I don't
food
know
and
that we are.
beverage coverage, the entertainment, the arts, the quote unquote culture, always a fun
Hmm.
word, uh, you know, uh, and local politics. I mean, it's kind of it's some of it is skewed younger, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that the people that we're writing about are younger. They're younger
Yeah,
people. Quite often, they're people that aren't getting written about in the daily for whatever reason. However, that kind of
yeah.
thing happens to the all weeklies now. I know I read a lot of blogs. I read about great artists, and there's a lot of great local culture blogs, and everybody's got a little chunk, and it's such a gift still to be able to write about them in Creative Loafing and see an artist get excited about being in our paper. I mean, I feel like you understand this. You contribute for us. Uh, we really adore the artists that we write about and the topics. We just care so much about this community. We almost walk a fine line between being objective and being a cheerleader.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Well, you have to do that. The other side of it, especially with arts writing, is that if you get too what's the word, uh, well, too negative, then you're just in love with the way your words sound. When you start kind of criticizing local people because you think you have kind of the right to, you don't
Mhm.
want to be cheerleaders all the time.
Right.
Sometimes if the criticism I think is constructive and included in an overall kind of view of what we're talking about rather than just like, well, this guy really sucked and he couldn't write a play. And it's like, that's a kiss of death, I think,
I
for
think you just have to check yourself and see where that's coming from inside of you. I think people that are like that are either trying to be antagonistic for ratings, like radio people, not all radio people, but like some
no,
radio
of
shows.
course not. Yeah,
Uh,
no, I get
uh,
that.
Eric Deggans does a really good job of talking about that in Race Baiter, how
Yeah.
people try to use media to divide people. But yeah, I mean, some people are just mean, right? And I don't know. I'd like to think I'm not mean now. Will I throw criticism out? Yeah, I mean, I get pissed off about a lot of things, and I write that I'm pissed off, and I think some of my last few columns have been about me being mad about things, you know? So,
Who's
yeah.
your audience, right? I mean, can you, when you're writing, can you
Mhm.
picture somebody sitting there that you're talking to? Your audience, do you know who they are?
Yeah, I think so. Like going back to what you said, like, is my audience young? Is it? I think it really does reach a wide swath. So, for instance, it's interesting with these protests. A lot of the papers weren't. They're just kind of covering it and talking about the antagonizers and the peacefulness, and we've done it too. What I think we're the only paper actually locally to write about some of the white supremacists breaking in last week. But I know that I can write about the bravery of a young protester, and somebody on the older spectrum is going to read that. Are they going to agree with it? I don't know. Are they going to make it through the whole thing without being offended by a paragraph that it write? Um, because it doesn't speak to their beliefs or their bias. I don't know, but I do know that I'm writing for a wide swath of people, and I love writing about younger people and knowing that older people are reading about them, and I love writing about older people, knowing that younger people are reading about it. Some of my favorite pieces lately have been about, not legacy bands, but bands that have been around for a while. The Black Honkies,
Yeah.
uh, Kitty Daniels, Eric Snyder's done a really good job of that. And I love the
Yeah.
fact that some kid out there is reading about somebody who's very important in the local scene, because I love hearing stories about the Joe Pops, the Club Detroits,
Right.
things like that. Because when you walk around town, no matter how old you are, if you love something and you see these places, you're like, oh, that's where Club Detroit was. That's where the Rub was, or something like that. You just feel connected to the ground you walk on. So
Feel connected to your
yeah,
community. I understand that. Listen,
yeah.
I want to get to the issue at hand, Ray. You've been
Hmm.
very public. Everybody has really about the paper's financial troubles. And I wonder, did that start before the whole COVID deal, or was it a direct result of that?
I think so. You're referring to our press club.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Advertising's
So
down. We may not be here in a year, that kind of stuff.
yeah. So
And we know
I
advertising now.
I struggle with that, and I said to myself, okay,
Mhm.
as I'm writing this introductory letter, do I know that the paper could be here in a year? I was like, I don't know. I don't know that. I feel like it could be, but I don't know. But the reality is, um, the newspaper business is hard. Already was.
Yeah,
We are very fortunate to have events, a beautiful event space in Tampa Heights with amazing people who book the events.
yeah,
We laid off 7 out of 12 people, and that was a direct response to events dropping off, advertising dropping off, because our advertisers are restaurants, their bars, their nightclubs, their concert promoters. Those are the people who advertise with us. So I think, I don't make the business decisions up there, but somebody said, this is what we got to do. We laid off 67% of our staff, 7 out of 12. And we got lean, and it's myself and Colin Wolf, full-time editorial.
yeah,
That's it. And then right now, we have a super solid crew of photographers covering the protest for us. We have some excellent freelancers that are really helping us out. I would say they're carrying the paper. But to get back to your point, what's the situation like? To me, that press club is the purpose of it is to bring back a editorial person, hoping that the money that we make there, we have a goal of 50,000, can just bring a body back, and not just a body. I don't mean it like that. Like I want a staffer back.
the talent.
Specifically,
Yeah, oh yeah,
yeah, I want to have Jenna Ryman Snyder back, who was writing our food stuff,
yeah.
and when she comes back, she'll be writing about a ton of other stuff, because. But we really miss that, and that's what we want with the press club. I don't know that the paper is like on its last leg, or anything like that. I don't sense that. But to your point that you said earlier, I don't know that it's going to be around for a year. Like,
Mm.
I just there's an uncertainty, right?
Is
Um,
there a thought somewhere, Ray, that let's dump the print issue because it's getting, these days, who really reads that anyways, and everything online? Is that something that they've or you have considered, like that may happen? It will take a lot of our overhead away if we don't do a print
um,
edition anymore.
Yeah, I think that some part of me when I'm putting the print book together every week is like, oh, let's get rid of it. But
I
there's,
remember
you
those
know,
days too. Yeah.
yeah, there's, I don't think that's the case with Creative Loafing Tampa. I know, so we're part of a group of 7 papers
Yeah.
after we were purchased, I don't know, 2 years ago or something like that. Well, I think one of the papers isn't printing. Don't quote me on that. But I don't think that's the case with Tampa. Is it hard to put a print issue together every week? Yes.
Yeah.
However, I will say that the print issue and building it has Creative Loving is web first. Something goes online, I'm gonna find a place for it in the book.
Yeah.
Special issues, that's another thing. Our best of the Bay, our summer guys, or this and that. When we were doing special issues, and all that stuff's up in the air now. Um,
Mhm.
but you know, stuff goes online. We figure out how it works in print, and we make it work. And I love putting a print issue together because there's nothing better than planning covers, writing print headlines. Web headlines are boring, right? They're
Yeah.
boring.
Yeah. No, I
They're
hear you.
boring. They're straightforward and informative. And our paper is, we have fun. We're offensive sometimes to a fault, but there's nothing more fun than working at it all weekly. And the best one of the best parts of that is the print. You know, there's stupid cartoons in there. There's our crossword puzzle is beloved. Merle has passed on, but we're still running Merle's crosswords. Um,
You ever go
and
down to the press and watch it come off the press?
I haven't done that yet, and I regret that I haven't done that because I feel like I need to have that
Yeah.
experience. So I do want to go down to Lakeland. But to answer your question, I mean, I don't think that's a thing for Creative Loafing. We love putting out the print book. Maybe it's 32 pages, sometimes maybe it's 40 pages. For a while before this freaking coronavirus, we were running 48-page papers,
Yeah.
sometimes 56. Because we had so much good content online that we wanted to give to the person who's going to pull that thing out of a box and read it on the can, read it at the dinner table,
Yeah. Well,
read it at
plus
a
to be
bar.
mercenary about it, you also had enough advertising to support that back in those days.
Yeah, that's probably a question for James, but my feeling is James has been there for so long, and Anthony and so many of those sales rep, those relationships that they have, it's incredible. I think we're a little bit unique in that sense.
Well, the idea, just to cover the ground here
Hmm.
briefly, is that since COVID, I will synopsize if you've just joined us.
Sure.
Since COVID, a lot of Creative Loafing's advertisers aren't advertising because they're bars and their restaurants and their clubs and theaters and places that, until I don't know now, I guess, were out of commission. And you guys took a pretty serious hit. I saw the issue today. I went through it on the online
Yeah.
version. See, I mean, I went through the flip book version, whatever you call that. A lot of
Hmm.
ads. It didn't seem like as many ads as before, but it seemed like there's a lot of ads in there.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I love about this paper also, and that I made clear to James when he asked me to do this particular position that I'm in, was that he wasn't going to tell me what to do.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
that's important.
and
Sure.
and I wasn't going to tell him what to do. And I've been really impressed with Euclid. This company
Yeah.
owns 7 papers, has never once told me what to do. Our COOs can break down the financial situations for us or say, here's what we're going to do now. This is what we're facing. But never once have they told me not to write something because it might upset somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like somebody who has a lot of money or something like that. And for better or worse, so are there a lot of ads? I hope so. I love looking at the ads.
Well, are
I
they starting
do.
to come back, Ray? Are the advertise? I mean, things
I
are
don't.
changing.
I don't know. You'd have to ask James.
Yeah.
James would know. I'm really really good at not giving a damn about that.
Oh, more power to you. I agree with
So
you.
uh,
But I mean, your page count. If they say, okay, you can go up to
mhm.
48,
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
and that's a
There've
good.
been days. There've been days when I've had to cut.
Sure. Yeah.
Something so we could get a different ad in, or just because I didn't have that extra, however many pages the jump was. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's happened. Um, and that's tough because you like seeing your stuff in print, but you also know that you go week to week and you take the wins and the losses,
Yeah.
and then you live for another week, and
At
you
the
get
end
to
of the
do it
day, it's
again.
a business
Like,
that you have to
yeah,
conform to certain things.
and you look at the business that we do, and my business is putting people's faces in papers and telling stories about this community, and I want to do that business every week, and so whatever it takes, I want to do that.
We are running into the cumulative end of time. I was going to say end of days, but no, that's not what I mean. But I want to end with, if we could, just describe briefly what the press club is and what you want to
Sure.
achieve, and how it works, how you'd like people to take,
Okay.
take heed and do that.
So I don't know, 3-4 months ago, we laid off a massive amount of people. It was a very painful day. I don't think that we knew what was going to happen with the paper,
Yeah.
but we decided that there should be a press club. All of our 7 papers have a press club. You either pay a one-time donation, or it's a recurring donation. And keep in mind, we're not a nonprofit, so it's not, it is like paying for news, but it's not tax deductible.
Well, it's a show
So
of support. It's
yeah, exactly. I mean, I hate this idea. Well, I don't hate it, but I go back and forth, and I really pride myself on the fact that our website, like yours, actually, you don't have to log in to get the
yeah.
news. You don't even have to log in, right? And people need that, like especially now where there's more of a divide than ever before between the haves and the have-nots,
Yeah.
and to have a completely free newspaper that you can pick up every week, and a free newspaper that you can read online, that's very important. So we're asking people who think that we do a good job, have done a good job, have written about your bar, your friend's band, whatever. I can't imagine living in a city without an alt weekly. And I think that anybody that travels and picks up all weeklies and reads them understands that. But even if you don't, the idea that there's a publication out there who's willing to tell it like it is, to call powerful people out in a way that's a little bit abrasive, that's not as, I wouldn't call the Times gentle, but we
Polite,
kind of
maybe.
polite.
Yeah.
That's a really good way to put it. But
Yeah.
we haven't pulled any punches, and I don't think we ever will. Um, we get a lot of shit for having the takes that we have,
Yeah.
and a lot of people hate us. And some days I'm worried that I'm gonna get shot, right? Because like the comments are nuts, and the
Well,
emails get
if you don't have that floating around somewhere, you're probably not doing your job, right?
right.
That sounds like
So
something Scott Harrell would have said. Yeah, somebody needs to hate you.
yeah, so we're asking people to say, I believe in this. I'm gonna give some money to this, whether it's regularly donating it, or a one-time thing, for some perks. There's perks with everything, um, because I believe in this paper, and I want the paper to continue to do this work for as long as it can. So I believe the campaign's going well. I try not to look at those emails. I just do what they ask me to do, as far as the editorial goes. And I try not to think about the money. Um, and we just keep on going. And I'm going to do it for as long as we can. I hope I'm not the last guy doing it. So
That's all you can do, man. Ray Roa, editor-in-chief of Creative Loafing Tampa. Check out the CL Press Club. Find out how you can support this wonderful and essential part of the media in our community. Ray, thanks so much, man, for coming on today. And
of course,
I'm gonna
thanks
have fun
for the kind
editing
words
these
and
2 videos.
for the kind attention.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I said, yeah, thanks for having us on, and yeah, have fun stringing this stuff together.
yeah, it's gonna be a blast. I really appreciate you coming on. I wish you all the best. And
Same to you.
I'll see you at some show one of these days, huh?
Yeah, maybe in like 2022 or something, whenever it all comes back.
Cross your fingers, brother. See you soon.
All right, see ya.